Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode in our webinar series, A Day in the Life of. I am extremely excited to welcome Julie Hendricks today. She is a Spark Experiment Facilitator. Welcome, Julie, and thank you so much for taking time out of your evening on a Monday to talk to us today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Okay, let's get started. Julie, maybe we can start with, you can tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a Spark Experiment Facilitator, but that's one of the many hats and things that I do. I'm a mom of two boys, 14 and 18, a wife. I'm a basketball coach as well, but I also, my kind of main role is as the alumni manager for Eduvas, the National Alumni Manager. But within that role, that's where we really are using the Spark Experiment quite extensively. In that space, really to build connections easier and to really to hone in on one of our values, which is humanness. And this is a great way of making, real human connections and understanding that everyone has shared human connections.
Yeah, I love that word, the value of humanness. I'm definitely going to steal that from you, and no one's going to be able to prove it because this is an online arrangement, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Julie, maybe you can let's talk about the Spark experiment. So I know a little bit about it, and that's why I was so excited when you wanted to be a speaker on the show. So maybe you can tell our audience, what is the Spark experiment?
Yeah, so there's a bit of history behind it, so I'll unpack it all for everyone. So in 2013, I was on the TEDx organizing committee, and as some of you will know, that TED Talks, it's kind of the byline is ideas worth spreading. So that's the first little bit of information. Then in 2014, Cape Town was designated as the World Design Capital, and a few of the people on the organizing committee of TEDx Cape Town and I were thinking, what can we do to get involved? We really wanted to be involved in this really cool thing about, design capital. So then we thought about, well, what experiences have we had that we can link to that? And we thought about the TEDx experience, and it's ideas worth spreading, but are they really spreading the ideas, or are they just telling you, it's an audience sitting kind of taking in this information? So then we thought about it, and how do ideas get spread? Ideas get spread between people through conversation. So how do you have really good conversations so that you can get, connections are made, you can really easily spread ideas and information and so on. So we came up with the conversation design. So that's where the Spark experiment actually came from. And what we realized is that, all humans, regardless of any diversity indicator, and obviously excluding some kind of disabilities or some sort of challenges, most humans share three things in common, and that is memories, emotions, and your senses. So then what we decided to do is we came up with about 100 questions, and they're seemingly innocuous questions when you first ask them, or kind of completely left field. But what we realized that these questions evoke one of those things, either evoke memories or emotion, or really kind of engage your senses in some way. So this is exactly what it is. There are questions that you ask people to spark conversation, but then also to spark a deeper connection and a deeper understanding of shared experiences and shared human experiences, really. Like we all, often we think we have more and not in common than we do in common, but through these questions, we really get to establish and to find out that there's so much we actually have in common just by being human.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very excited to be a subject in the Spark experiment in a few minutes. Considering our audience, I thought maybe we should talk a little bit about how this experiment works in the space that we're both operating, which is basically students and graduates, students, operating within a campus, and also graduates on the verge of looking for jobs and in interview processes right now.
Yeah. So this is one of the great things about this, actually. So whenever I facilitate these sessions, I give quite a detailed explanation of what I'm about to say. So imagine, and I'll try and do an abridged version here. So imagine you're at a networking event, right? It's an industry event, and you're there, and the goal normally for these kind of networking events is to meet people and kind of build your network and your connections and so on. So now imagine you're at a networking event. It happens to be a financial one. You go up to someone, and our normal first question is, "Oh, hello. My name is so and so. What do you do?" So people always respond with their job, what their job is, right? They always, if I say to them, "What do you do?" then they'll say, "Oh, I'm an accountant or whatever." But you ask me what I do now, for example. So if you
All
ask
right,
me now,
Julie. Okay, cool. I love this. This is so exciting. Julie, what do you do?
I really enjoy gardening. I do a lot of art. I coach basketball and so on. So you see, what you do and what you do for a living are two totally different things. And often people assign value to you based on the job that you tell them that you do. So as a student at the moment, you go into these things, you go to these events and people say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm a student. And I go, "Oh, okay, that's nice. What do you study?" All those kind of things. Similarly, though, if you went up to someone and you said, "Oh, hello, what do you do?" And they said, "Oh, I'm the CEO of Nedbank." Your first reaction would be, "Oh my gosh, okay, I don't have anything to say to this person. This is so scary. What must I do?" And you go, "Oh, okay." And you like timidly wander off, never having got that person's name even or contact details or whatever. So the Spark experiments is also a way of kind of doing away with these socially kind of embedded barriers and hierarchies and so on. So what about doing this next time you're at a networking event? Number one, never ask someone what they do, rather ask them what line of work they're in. For the power of semantics is very, very different, right?
Okay.
And then what you could do is you could preface your next your conversation. It's like, "Oh, hello, my name is Julie. You could tell them I'm a student at Eduvas. I'm studying this. I know this is a bit of an odd question. You might not have been asked before, but what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?" So this person's going to look at you and go, "That's an interesting question. Why do you ask that?" And then you just answer something very simply like, "Oh, my favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla because when I was a kid, my granny used to take us for Fanta grape floats, my sister and I, for our birthdays. And now whenever I have vanilla ice cream, I think of my granny and I think of my sister and sadly she's passed, but it's all these memories that I have of that." And you can see just in that, I've evoked a memory, an emotion, and then you kind of can taste the Fanta grape float and so on. So then the person has found out something about you, and then they'll go, "Oh, okay, they've been vulnerable enough to tell me this information about themselves." And then they say, "Oh, actually, I really like cornetto ice cream." And then you can use those as conversation hooks, right? So cornetto, "Oh, I love a cornetto." And then you have this whole conversation about cornettos. This is all kind of theoretically, of course, but then at the end of the conversation, you could say, "Oh, and by the way, you say you work at Nedbank," and they're like, "Oh yeah, I do," and you exchange details. But then you have made a connection on a completely different level than you would have anyone else and that had spoken to that person. So in 3 months' time, or whatever, you see there's this opportunity at Nedbank, let's say, and you've got this person's details, and you send them an email and say, "Hi, I'm Julie. I'm the person that loved a good Fanta grape float," and that would ignite or spark a memory of you, of the cornettos, whatever. And you can say something like, "Oh, I had any good cornettos recently," whatever. And also, I've seen there's this position open here, and so on. And there's like, "Oh yes, Julie, how are you?" And I'll maybe tell you about the cornetto or whatever. And then they'll say something like, "Okay, well, sure, speak to Jane in HR and tell her I sent you." And then that's like the way of networking has become far more personal and authentic rather than just, "I'm looking for a job, give me a job," because you were vulnerable enough in the first place to share something personal that held a memory. But they also were in that situation where you've engaged with them in a completely different way than anyone else would have engaged with them normally, and you'll be memorable. So it's also about being memorable. That's one of the most important things, being memorable for a positive thing, of course, but then also for being completely human and being authentic in your interactions with people.
Yeah, it's the value of humanness. I actually wrote that down in my book. That's exactly what you're saying, because it's not you're no longer like this sort of gray person with, let's say, a BCom studying at blah blah. You're, hi, I'm this person, I have this thing we actually connected on, if it's ice cream, and you don't forget that. You're more likely to forget that you met this kid who's got like a BA, for example, because you're meeting 15 or
Absolutely.
20 of them. Yeah. I
Mm.
think I think it's such an exciting opportunity that you're involved with. I know when I popped you the email, that's not a problem. Remember, we all do these things after hours, so I see Julie's had to mute herself for a second. That's not a problem at all, Julie. When Julie and I first had this conversation, it was very interesting because she disarmed me, so to speak. I remember you asked me what my favorite ice cream was, and we were in the middle of a different conversation, and I kind of stepped back and I blurted out my answer, which was pistachio. And the conversation just flowed so naturally afterwards that it was like, the disarming element of everything is something that I think is just so valuable to everyone, not just the students and the graduates. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so Julie, sorry, I just started rambling on there a little bit about this, but I'm quite
No problem.
excited. If you were to conduct a very short spark experiment on me, acting as if you don't know who I am, how would you go about it? And then before you begin, just to remind the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them. I am keeping an eye on the chat, and I'm happy to pose them to Julie during the course of our conversation.
So the spark experiments is these little cards, right? We've got all these little cards, and they've got questions on them and a variety of questions on them. So normally each person would have a card and a question, and I would ask you, and then we would just chat. We would just chat about it. And the thing about the conversation design is also about learning the hooks, because often we don't know how to continue a conversation. So, and we often ask kind of what is it called, close-ended questions like, do you like ice cream, yes or no? So it's also about learning how to have these conversations and learning the skill of looking for hooks. So
Yeah.
I can ask you this question, and then you can answer, and then you can see how it goes.
Okay,
Up
cool.
for it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm excited.
Okay, so why do you think we raise our shoulders when we are out in the rain?
To protect our ears. I know that's an odd question.
Yeah, but it's an interesting thing, because we always, whenever we go out in the rain, we all walk like this. How is raising our shoulders? Is it just a natural instinct to try and like make ourselves smaller? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it's instinctive as human beings that when we're in a state of discomfort, we're going to try and make ourselves as small as possible. So maybe that's why we raise our shoulders in the rain.
But I find sometimes, even when you have an umbrella or you've got a waterproof jacket or something, we still do that. And it's such an interesting thing to see. And most people do it, like wherever you are, you try and make yourself small and hide out of the rain. It's so interesting. Have you ever been caught in like serious downpour ever?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have. It actually happened this winter now in Cape Town on a hike. And, the weather app said it absolutely wouldn't rain until around 2 o'clock that afternoon, but we know how Cape Town is. So that happened a lot earlier. And there I was, exactly, shoulders up, huddled, under my little raincoat.
But do you go hiking quite a lot in Cape Town?
I do. Yeah, it's every Saturday if the weather permits.
Amazing. Where's your favorite place to hike?
There's quite a few places here in Stellenbosch which are quite beautiful. Probably Jonkershoek. I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, Jonkershoek is amazing. But the problem though with Cape Town and hiking in mountains is that you can get caught in weather so easily. You have to pack for just about every season.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've got a hat, sunscreen, I've got my parka, I've got boots and a change of socks. in my car at any given
That's
point.
important. That is super important. Nothing worse than squelchy feet.
Yeah,
And do you
no,
pack,
it's the
like,
worst.
I don't know if you found it, but also even in summer, you have to pack for all possibilities. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the moodiest province in this country. So there's no such thing as just, you're having a summer. So you've always got to be
Yeah,
prepared. Yeah.
absolutely. So there, like if we just stop there, we started with why do you raise your shoulders, and we ended up talking about hiking and what to pack for hiking. And then, I mean, I could go on and on. Like I have a real shared interest in the mountains and hiking and so on. And it's just about finding those little hooks, because so often we get nervous because we, especially in networking or in those kind of situations, we get so nervous about trying to sell ourselves and do that elevator pitch, as they all talk about. And sometimes that's the last thing you should be worried about. Sometimes you should just be completely authentic and completely you, so people can find out who you are as a human,
Yeah.
and your experiences, and you can literally find shared experiences. I mean, I got
Yeah.
caught in this heavy downpour once as well, and those kind of things. And it's all started by silly questions.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's the disarming element, like I already mentioned, it immediately makes you step back because you're expecting a certain kind of conversation. And then the fact that the one sort of conversation leads to another shows immediately that you're listening and you're engaging and you want to hear, what the person has to say. But Julie, what are the no-nos? Like, so we have to ask personal questions, but in your experience, like, how do you, I mean, the no-nos are sort of given, there are topics that are
Yeah,
obviously off the
yeah.
table, but how do you navigate that?
So I think it's well, in keeping with the humanist aspect, along with being, showing humanness is kindness and empathy and all of that. And what we've found in quite a lot of these, I mean, first of all, none of these questions will ever go to kind of the no topics of like politics or religion or anything
Yeah.
like that. But often what comes out is that people share quite kind of emotional things, experiences. Some of them are quite painfully emotional. And I think the overarching thing is just to be very conscious that you're dealing with someone that has emotions and has experiences, who knows, might have trauma from it. So it's about empathy, understanding, and being, if they have been vulnerable enough to tell you that, they obviously see you as a safe space. So hold that space for them, and don't judge. There should be no judgment, no condescension. It's just my whole thing is about, like, I see you
Yeah.
as a human. I see you. And if that person has been vulnerable enough to share stuff with you, um be kind and empathetic. But also, if they've shared something that perhaps you don't agree with, be the same. Because again, we are all human, but we might have different opinions and perceptions about things, and that would be the perfect opportunity to perhaps engage in a conversation to try and get a better understanding of why that person has an opinion that is different to you. I mean, every opportunity is also a learning opportunity.
Yep.
So yeah. So I think the no-nos are, leave judgment at the door, try not be judgmental, try and not, and I would never say be unkind. Like I would, yeah, always try and be kind. So don't be unkind or nasty. Um, yeah, and just be nice. Just be
Yeah.
nice.
And
It's easier for me to find the do's rather than the don'ts.
yeah. No, well then let's talk a little bit about the do's. So what could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think also in this, when you're having conversations with people, I think you mentioned something really important earlier, and especially if the conversation has been sparked by one of these cards or a question that's kind of unexpected, is to really engage your listening skills. So don't listen. I mean, I'm sure everyone has heard this. Don't listen to answer. Listen to hear. And then if you hear someone saying, oh, when you went on a hike, oh, where did you go for a hike? that's interesting. I also like that place. Or, you know, you pack lots of bags with bags with lots of things in it. Oh, okay. Why do you do that? So don't try to preempt what your answer is going to be. Listen for the hooks, for the conversation hooks to continue the conversation. That's what I would say is a big do for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
ask
I've
questions. You know, people are often scared of not or scared of asking too many and silly questions, and I'm completely in the opposite field of that, because you can only find out about people by asking questions. And you know, the more you ask, the more people will tell you things, and then the conversation will flow better. That's in
yeah,
my
and I mean that.
experience anyway.
Yeah, no, and you're a facilitator, so you know exactly what you're talking about. And I 100% agree with you, because I mean, that's what we all want. If I had to get very, you know, sort of philosophical here, but the more we know about people, the better we're going to be as a society, you know? I had a question
100%.
for you that I have completely forgotten because I've been so like into this. Ah, yes, okay. So I've experienced this with the students on the platform at Gradlinc, in the sense that they've asked this from an interview perspective. So we encourage students to, you know, prep for interviews. And what we've seen once or twice, is that they've prepped so hard that the listening thing becomes a little tricky, where you, if an employer asks them a question to sort of throw them off balance, they don't know what to do, so they revert back to a prepared answer, which doesn't actually. I'm going on a little bit here, but I'm getting to
Yeah.
a point, right? So it doesn't relate. So we had an incident where a student approached us, an employer threw her off slightly by going, "If you had an evil superpower, what would it be?" And she had no idea what to do with that, so she just twisted it into one of her values, or you know, something like that. Would you have advice for students? And this is where the question comes in. Like I said, it was a bit winded. You have to prep for an interview, but you need to be a little bit more flexible, I guess, in your approach during the interview. So how could you use the disarming method to help you?
I think, like anything, I suppose it comes down to practice. So
Yeah.
yes, you're incredibly well versed on what you want to say for the bog standard questions, but any good interviewer will throw you one of those to see a number of things. Number one, how you react under a pressure situation, how you react on the fly, let's say, but also just to see if you have kind of an authentic understanding of who you are, not a prepared one. So I would say, to do that, get people to ask you these kind of questions, completely left field questions, so that you get used to answering them and thinking on the fly, oh, okay, what's that? I mean, I've had someone in an interview ask me, if you could, and it's now one of my favorite questions to ask, if you could be a piece of furniture, what would you be? I'm like, what? That's an interesting one. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I ask it all the time now because it gives a sense of things. So like my answer now is a dining room table, because I like community and people around me and conversation and that kind of thing. Someone else has said, oh, there would be a coat hanger, because they, you know, people can put their worries on them and they can hold their burdens. And someone else said there would be a couch, because they want to be a place of comfort and safety to people and those kind of things. So it's just about or like getting used to thinking on the fly and thinking beyond what is kind of normal questions. So I would really encourage people to practice those kind of things. But also just don't get flummoxed by it, because the answer is there. You're in just such a highly emotional state in interviews that you think, like I said, you always think you have to do your elevator pitch for yourself. And sometimes people are wanting to know more about the person behind the pitch and the polished answers. And just be okay if you don't come up with what you think is the best answer or what they're not looking for. That's okay. More often than not, the interviewers are probably just trying to find out a little bit more about you as a person, what you are really like, and you know, what your thought process and stuff. They're not going to, unless you said your evil superpower was to kill anyone, I think that you would be fine. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be
So Julie, okay, so we're almost out of time. I just wanted to ask, for the sake of our audience, if someone was interested in participating in one of these facilitated sessions, how would they go about it?
Yeah, I mean, they can contact me, and we could set up a session if they have a group of people that they would like me to facilitate it with. It works best if it's in person. At least, I would say probably at least 6 to 10 people is ideal. And we've done it in different settings, in corporate settings, in schools, in youth leadership development spaces. And the corporate was so interesting, for example, because people had worked next to each other for 5 years. And after doing this, they found out all sorts of stuff about each other that they didn't know, because they'd only been operating at a work level, which often we can't divorce the person from the work person, you know. So it's often really good to do that. But yeah, they can contact me, and then we can see what they can do, what we can assist them with.
All right, that's great. So if anyone is interested, you can get in touch with us at Gradlinc, and we'll happily put you in touch with Julie. We're out of time now. I just want to say thank you so much. This was so great. It was just as much fun as the first time. So we really do appreciate you coming on the show and doing this episode with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I think the important takeaway is, don't be afraid of asking questions, and don't be afraid of sharing answers that you think are a bit left field, because those are the ones that really make good connections with people.
Sure. I love that. That's a perfect takeaway. Julie, you must have a lovely evening, and
Thank you,
enjoy
you
the
too.
rest of your week. Okay.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye. Bye.